Thank you very much. So this is Ratan Tata alive. And Thomas, in the 4.5 years and the many years you knew Ratan Tata, did you ever think that this book would actually come out after his death?
Anyway, thank you. Thank you for being here. Sonia, let me begin by answering the first question. I didn't even think that this book would see the light of the day. It's not the question whether after his death I would publish this. In fact, this book was in the making for about 4.5 years. It's by happen chance that it happened. He is a very reticent person, as you know, very private person. You praise him and he becomes cherubic, and you praise him more, he'll start biting his lips. And you tell him, sir, this is what you have done. He will say, Thomas, it's not me. That's the workers, or it is J.J. Rani, or somebody else. So that's what he would do. And it is very unfortunate that he did not live to see this book. I don't know if you'd have been happy reading the book, because this book makes him a giant, which he is for the world.
It also, and I think this is rare as a journalist and so many, that to know Ratan Tata, to get close to him, because he was so publicity averse in a sense. And this also is an authorized biography, but not an approved biography. Why is that?
That's a sharp nuance. Now, in order to establish this, I had to go back to Steve Jobs' book and Elon Musk's book written by Walter Isaacson. Now, an authorized biography is a biography where the subject will work with you, give you access to all the documents and important people to interview, but he shall have no editorial content over its contents. And I need to tell you something very interesting, how this book came about. Now, Ms. Tata was the distinguished guest of President Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. He had come to Rashtrapati Bhavan. So, Rashtrapati Bhavan, you're cocooned. And I got him completely for myself for about 24, 48 hours, and a compulsive, conversation like me. He is too polite to say, Thomas, that's enough, stop. He heard me and he told me about his life, started asking about his girlfriends. Initially, he was not forthcoming. Then he started speaking about his first girlfriend, then second and third. And how it happened was, when my son and I had gone to Mumbai, he's in the foreign service, he says, Dad, you speak so much about Ratan Tata. Can I meet him? I said, you can't. He said, no, please. He said, I need to touch and feel and see if he's for real. So after a lot of persuasion, I picked up the phone and called Sir. I said, sir, can I come and see you? Because my son doesn't believe that you are the person who have described, about you to him. And then he said, Thomas, if you're free, come over for dinner. And that was unbelievable. Can you imagine? Some, people spend a lifetime wanting to at least see Mr. Ratan Tata. He says, come over for dinner. Now, let me show you that. Can I have that A1 photo, please? That's the photo. They're going to come up with this photo. That's the photo of Mr. Tata and my son. They will be able to show you probably in about a second or so. And during the dinner meeting, there's something very interesting happened. He and Mr. Tata got talking for about 3.5 hours. I just kept quiet. I did not intervene at all. And I heard snapshots of his life. It was so fascinating. And I told him at the end of the conversation, I said, sir, it's time that you wrote your autobiography. He said, Thomas, I'm not going to write my autobiography. In case you want, you do the biography. I couldn't believe what I heard. I didn't ask him the question a second time. So that's how the book came about.
When you read the book, of course, there are all his accomplishments, there's some of his failures, his challenges. But what comes out is Ratan Tata, the enigma. And he does come across as a man who is lonely, and lonely at the end as well. How how did that strike you, that a man who in some ways seems to have everything, has achieved so much success, yet that lonely streak began from his childhood?
Yes. Now, he has not had a very exciting childhood. When he was about 7 years old, his mother decided to leave her matrimonial home. And as Mr. Tata said, it left his father very distraught. Can you imagine in the 1940s when your wife walks out on you, how embarrassing it would be? Not that it would not be embarrassing in the modern days, although you may conceal it. He says, I had a distraught father and a mother who abandoned us. And that brought in a lot of insecurity in him. And the only person who looked after him and took him under her wings was his grandmother, that is Sir Ratan Tata's wife. And she was his fairy godmother for all practical purposes. And it left a lot of deep thoughts in his mind and in his future life. It manifested in many ways. His brother Jimmy was far more acutely affected. And in fact, it affected their entire family. And therefore, for some reason, he says that, Thomas, in school, we were outclassed. We were made fun of. And he had only two friends. One is the famous Zubin Mehta and his brother. And he was so insecure, he used to tag along with his father when he went for Sunday parties. So he was an extremely lonely person. And probably that trend continued. But, honestly speaking, anybody would have got an opportunity to spend time with him. The man is extraordinary. Because I have an explanation for this. That in his persona, you combine opposite polarities of character. And they seemingly integrate in his persona. Let me give you an example. As a businessman, he is fiercely competitive. But in terms of empathy, I don't think there is anybody who can even compare with him. So that's the kind of person he was. And once you are able to get his confidence, every day is a new learning. Can I have the photos B, please? And he's a great listener. Let me tell you what's very important about him is that when you are in the room, he'll make you feel as if you are the only human being in the universe. That's the kind of importance he is to give you. And once he reposes his faith in you, then he will not look back. And in fact, he's given me about 140 hours of interview. I mean, I've only revealed about 5 to 10%. I don't know if I could ever reveal the rest of it. But everything is a fascinating story. How this man overcame what normally human beings would not have had the capacity to overcome. So that is this unique man. I'll come to the loneliness after a little while.
I'm going to ask more about that because in a sense, he fell in love when he was in America. And there were you've mentioned about 4 relationships he had which didn't work out. And then I think at some point, he just gave up.
I don't know if he gave up.
Oh.
But let me tell you about
he decided not to pursue it.
No. Probably, if somebody as beautiful as you are, probably would have come close to him, then probably he would have changed his mind, I guess. Now, let me tell you about his first girlfriend, okay?
I think the intelligence would have perhaps been more to stress on.
I don't know. But let me tell you about his first girlfriend. First girlfriend is the daughter of the person. That is, when R&T in 1962 completed his graduation in architecture from Cornell, he came to California. And there's this company called Jones and Emmons Architectural Firm. One of the most bespoke companies, architectural companies during the time. And Emmons' daughter Carolyn saw him, and I interviewed her for about 9 hours in San Francisco. She said, I was absolutely speechless. My throat went dry. I could not even look at his face because he was almost like a Greek god. And R&T also lost his heart. Now, let me tell you, at that age of RT. Can I have those photos, please? Can I have those C photos, C section? Photos, please? No. Move on,
This is in Caroline.
please. Yeah, yes. Now, if any man from this room will carry this photo home, you are in for problem. That much I can tell you. Now, he could be, look at him, how handsome, stunning, almost like a Greek god he was. And his eyes, can you imagine R&T as a barman? Can you ever imagine R&T as a barman? You know, his eyes were hazel. Hazel means it melted the color of green, gold, and, brown. That is the kind of eyes he had, completely mesmerizing. Now, can you just go back into the earlier photo, please, for a second? Now, this is a very interesting photo. You can't guess who gave me this photo.
Who did?
Carolyn gave it to me.
She kept it all these years.
That's very interesting. That is the enigma of every woman, I guess. Now, let me tell you this. This is quite interesting. She got married. I'll tell you the story. In 1962, R&T had to come back home because his grandmother was unwell. And his grandmother was the center of his universe. She did not ask him to come, but he decided to come. And he asked her, and she said she will come to India, follow him. And you know, in October 1962, there was the Sino-Indian War. During the Sino-Indian War, the American public thought that India is going to get invaded. So, as the only child of a father, the parents were not very comfortable sending her to India. And that's how the relationship, because of the distance, did not fructify into anything concrete. But honestly speaking, the two of them were so much in love that in 1966, after the birth of her first child, R&T went to San Francisco to meet her and take her husband out for dinner. So he took Owens Jones, and Carolyn out for dinner. And at that time, he told her, confessed to her, that I wanted you to be unhappy so that I can be with you. But I found you to be happy, and therefore I will not get in touch with you ever again. And he did not. Until 2006, when her husband passed away. They went and saw this Hollywood movie called, The Darjeeling Limited. And then suddenly a friend said, do you know anybody in India? And she decided to write an email to Mr. Tata. And in 2008, they got in touch with each other. Thereafter, every December, she came to India and spent 2 or 3 weeks with Mr. Tata at his home. The embers of love never extinguished in a case. So that's the kind of love we are talking about. And what did she do with these photos? She hid these photos in the last drawer, which is a lingerie drawer. And she said, every time when I thought about him, I picked it up, saw it, kept it back, and I took it out only when my husband was not at home. So that's what happened to first love.
So
After that, he had 3 other girlfriends. The most interesting was the last one, was half his age, a very stunningly looking Gujarati. And I said, sir, what happened? He said, one fine morning, she walked out on me. I said, I can't imagine who can walk out. Now, let me tell you about this photograph. It's a very interesting photograph. I don't know if Aaron would have been alive, would have been happy seeing this photo. You know why? He said, Thomas, this photo is very embarrassing because my looks are giving me away, he said. So I said, sir, at the age of 24, 25, if your looks don't give away, then what is the point in living as a man? But he was very unhappy. He said, don't do this. Okay, let's go into...
No, let's look also, then we move from his love story, and love stories which didn't work out, but really in a sense, in a way, the Tata story was the India story. And he really, through the years, through different governments, what's always fascinated me about Ratan Tata is actually, when he came in and was in the Tata group, till the age of 41, he didn't really show any great spark. People were surprised when he took over as JRD's successor, and many thought he would fail. What do you think was that element which made Ratan Tata the legend he was?
See, there are so many things. Now, coming to the serious side of Mr. Tata, not many people know that in 1983, he did what's called the strategic plan. And prior to 1983, 1978, he wrote a letter to JRD Tata. And that letter, copy of which I have, I don't think it's there even in the archives, which R&T was kind enough to give it to me. In that he said, the fissiparous tendencies would break Tata Group asunder unless there is a strong center. Therefore, he asked Mr. JRD, he said, you need to hold several meetings, bring out a strategic plan so that, and he saw the 1991 economic reforms coming. And he was so far-sighted that he had slowly brought in the elements of competitiveness which he thought should be a part of the Tata Group when the economic reforms would be initiated. And then he, in 1990, he changed the 1983 strategic plan so that it comes in terms with the changes that would have been in the offing. Through these two strategic plans, he laid the pillars of change. Now, it is not one or two people who thought that he will fail, especially the stalwarts like Rusi Modi, Darbari Seth, Ajit Kekar. They were stalwarts in their own right, great leaders. And person like Rusi Modi, very boisterous man, and he used to boast that he used to have 16 eggs for his breakfast. And he was so democratic that he used to tell his people, I'm so democratic that I give you the right to agree with me. So that's the kind of man he was. Okay? And R&T was pitched against these stalwarts. And he told me, Thomas, it was a very difficult time for me. Everybody thought that I would fail. Because then you did not have any retirement policy for the Tata Group. The saying was that once you are in the Tatas, I don't know if you've heard about Dungarwadi. Dungarwadi is the Parsi cemetery. It says, once you are in Bombay House, your next journey is the last journey of yours. So R&T institutionalized a lot of systems. And his famous restructuring program, which actually consists of 11 pillars of change. Now, not many people have been lucky enough to have heard R&T talk about the 11 pillars simultaneously moved in traction to transform the entire group. And the JRD QV Award, Qualitative Value Award, based on the Malcolm Baldrige of the US.
So he managed to actually institutionalize, he managed
He
to
not only
transform
institutionalized, there was complete transformation. Let me give you an example. Now, nobody would be able to understand this. When R&T took over in 1991, the stake of Tata Sons in Tata companies was so low that it was vulnerable to hostile takeover. You'll be surprised to know that Tata Sons, the promoter company, had less stake in Tata Steel, which was Tisco at the time. It had less than the Birla Group. That is, Birla Group at 10.3% more shares in Tata Steel, that is Tisco, than the holding company. So what did he do? So he struck upon a lot of strategic initiatives along with Noshir Sunawala, the financial wizard. And they were, through many financial instruments, increased the stake. Along with the increasing of the stake, what did he do? He had this Tata Business Excellence model. And most importantly, what people don't realize is that he started what's called the Tata Code of Conduct.
Yes.
That's in 1998.
In fact, I want to actually come in the Tata Code of Conduct, because I think the most interesting thing, and this I think if you talk to corporate leaders over the years, was how he dealt with governments and politicians. And the ethos was absolutely uncompromising. The Tata Group will not pay bribes. Now, the Tata Group, he often felt they lost out because of that. Yet, Whether it was Lalu Yadav, whether it was any other politicians, he dealt with them in his way. Tell us about some examples which showed that he would not pay bribes, even if it meant that the Tata Group was compromised or lost out.
See, there are many instances. The most interesting instance was shared by J.J. Rani, Dr. J.J. Rani. Dr. J.J. Rani was forced to call Mr. Tata and ask him, "Sir, I've been told that if I ask you, you would agree for us to pay 4 crores bribe."
To whom?
To the minister's private secretary.
Which minister?
Will you go back to history? 1998?
And the minister of?
Mines.
Okay, we'll Google that.
Google that.
Okay.
And then what happened was that
Vishnu,
he said,
Google it.
1,000, I don't know which party, I don't know.
Okay.
Vishnu is smart, but I think he'll be able to get it. Now, he says, 1,000 crores rights, mines right, you're going to get if you pay 4 crores. Mr. Tata reprimanded J.J. Rani. He said, "Why have you called me for this? You know my stance. I'm not going to do that." And finally, he lost out. And he lost out. And he didn't get the 1,000 crores. And he was steadfast in adherence to those values. And that is Mr. Tata. And he did not ever, he told me many instances where he was almost compelled, but then he moved back. You know what he said? If we start adopting the same methods which others, I'm not taking the names of other large industrial houses, then we'll be the same venal business house. We would have grown much faster than what we would have if we would have adopted those means. He said, we are not going to do that. And therefore, TCOC, when the Tata Code of Conduct, when introduced, many of the countries in Europe had also not initiated this. And he tied it up with, the brand equity scheme. In other words, he said, you need to be a signatory of TCOC in order to be eligible to use the Tata brand.
So then the Radia tapes, the Ratan Tata took a huge hit to his reputation then. Tell us the story from his words.
See, let me tell you something. Radia tapes, according to me, is much ado about nothing. Now, what is it? Has anybody heard Radia tapes? You have heard some conversation where R&T is talking to Radia, okay? In zest, it talks, generally as we speak. See, tomorrow, if I pick up the phone and tell you that day, during the session you were dressed so beautifully. What is wrong in that? And in fact, something is very interesting. This was a plot against Mr. Tata. As Washington Post said, any person mentioned in the Radia tapes became by default a criminal. And please understand, there were powerful industrial houses which moved the special court to also include Mr. Tata and Radia as an offender. They pleaded in the court.
In the 2G scam at that time.
In the 2G scam. And the judge said, okay, let's get this examined by CBI. And the 2 applicants who prayed for this inclusion of these 2 people, you know who they turned out to be? One turned out to be a scrap dealer in Ghaziabad. Okay. Second, a journalist. After CBI investigated, they said there is no basis and the applicants were fined rupees 10,000.
Who did Ratan Tata think was behind it?
Industrial houses. Now, you can guess. Vishnu knows it better than me. Yeah, he knows it better than me.
Which industrial house did Mr. Tata think was behind it?
I don't think I can hear you right. I can't do that. I'm not going to name them. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. But let me tell you one. There's something very interesting. The JPC, the chairperson, Murli Manohar Joshi, he had come out and said openly, I trust Mr. Tata. He's an honest man and he's telling the truth. So at the end of the day, the CBI court also said the Tatas were discriminated against and they got the license after 87 days after the others got. So at the end of the day... Again,
they lost out in a sense because they weren't paying bribes.
Absolutely, lost out. I mean, if it had paid bribes, I think you would have got it like many others would. You know some of the very famous companies, I don't have to tell you. There was a minister from Himachal Pradesh, Okay, he ushered in the revolution, but then he did a lot of other things which sped because of speed money. You know that. But R&T stuck to his guns. He said, we are not going to compromise on our principles whatsoever.
And I think, interestingly, again, and this comes out of the book, that the fact that patriotism was very much part of Ratan Tata's personal DNA. The fact that he said what's good for India is good for the Tata group. That hasn't come out. And when he decided, in fact, again, I think the far-sighted nature of the man, who he looked at technology much before other business houses, how technology needs to transform the Tata group, and about going global, that why rely on one economy, we need to go global. Yet many detractors, many business observers, journalists felt that he overstretched. But he went first for brands, the iconic British brands, and said, humorously perhaps, that the empire strikes back.
He didn't say it humorously, he meant it.
Seriously.
Honestly. But R&T is not given to such kind of conversation. It just happened in 2010, he was addressing Cornell University. So somebody said, what does this all mean? In zest, I don't know how he said it, normally he doesn't speak like that. He says it's a kind of empire striking back. Now, you need to understand what R&T's philosophy was. If you go back into history, in 1 AD, India's GDP was about 37% of the world GDP. You know that. I don't have to tell you that. Now, he felt that what the Britishers did in India was very bad, and they looted this country. So it is in that context, he said, but it was not an easy ride for him. The British press said Mr. Tata has to pray for deliverance. And I'm going to tell you something which is startling. There's a gentleman called Ken Gorin. Ken Gorin was the chairman of Jaguar Dealers Association of the United States. Bill Ford, the great-grandson of Henry Ford, primed Ken Gorin to speak against Mr. Tata. And he said openly that India, a nation of bicyclists, cannot own a marquee brand. But Mr. Tata proved all of them wrong. And the British government too, Peter Mandelson, almost insulted Mr. Tata. And he wanted to imply that Tatas are coming to the British government for aid in order to misuse it. And he said, Mr. Tata himself wrote to him and also told me that Lord Peter Mandelson never got it because the jobs were British. And he said, you go to Indian banks and finance your repurposing of the group or whatever transformation you want to do. And that's how he was boxed into a corner. But the man never gave up. And Jaguar, for instance, is very interesting. New York Times said something very, very interesting. He said it's an instance of a once proud civilization buying the hallowed Western corporations. And it sort of ignited nationalism in India as an harbinger of change. And the New York Times again said, quoted a Times of India editor, and he said, we were eclipsed by foreigners and foreign rule for a few centuries. But this is comeuppance. This is retribution most needed. So this is how patriotic Mr. Tata was, and that's the kind of reaction which was there in the British and the American press after he did Tetley, Chorus, and Jaguar.
In the book, I think one of the most moving bits, and as an applause for that, of course, and for Mr. Tata, it seems so odd, actually, that he's not part of our landscape anymore. But you've written so movingly of 26/11, when terrorists stormed the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, just coming literally in a boat and walking in, and how Ratan Tata first heard of it and rushed there, and was there the whole night, the days that followed, and how, most importantly, and I think this is really remarkable, not one member of staff left the Taj Hotel under siege, even though they knew the way is out. In fact, more members of staff came in and went into a hotel which was under fire by terrorists.
See, for R&T, Tata organization means a family. And Krishna Kumar, who is no more, he used to say, Thomas, every person in Tata hotels, like Taj, will look at you as a member of the family till the time you are there in the organization. And it is not that people did not run away. In fact, Professor Deshpande from Harvard University had done so many reports and studied why the employees showed such exemplary loyalty toward the group. But he could not find an answer. R&D says that's because we treat them as a family member. And they will give their loyalty because they think that this is the organization they have to fight.
They gave their lives. Ratan Tata himself wanted to go into the hotel.
They said it didn't matter. It is for us to protect those guests who are with us. He says it is a solemn duty to do so. And what Mr. Tata did after that for the workers and for the employees who lost their life is incredible. I have a chapter called The Life-Changing Moment. And then there are several instances. Let me give you one example. There is this Chemburkar family, and this Chemburkar, he was a bell captain in Oberoi Hotel, not Taj. R&T started the Taj Welfare Trust and went ahead and started providing relief to people irrespective of where they belonged. And he met most of the victims, relatives, went to hospital, and also met with all the employees whose father, brothers, sisters were in some way affected in 2611. I'll give you a simple instance of this Chemburkar story. Chemburkar had a 10-year-old girl. Chemburkar was shot dead. His wife had to look after his mother, who had Alzheimer's, and the father, who was almost paralyzed. And you know what he said? When Taj Welfare Trust met her, they said, you go ahead and do what you want. We will provide you all the financial support. They trained her to be a beautician, but most interesting is not that. Their daughter finished graduation and said she wanted to be an air hostess. And she became an air hostess. Tata completely paid for her. And thereafter she says, I want to be a pilot. And Taj Trust said, okay, you become a pilot. Today, she flies Indigo and she flies you. So what R&T had done, fixed broken homes, broken dreams, and metaphorically and literally gave flight to their vision and what they wanted in life. Let me give you another example of Sonu Varghese. This is more interesting. Sonu Varghese's husband was shot dead, ripped virtually into two. He was working in Wasabi. Now, Sonu, and what R&T did was he met all these, the victims, relatives, and hotel president from morning till evening. So Sonu walks in with her son, two sons. One is Reinal and Wellesley. Wesley was studying to be a nurse. And she says, I didn't know what to do. I was led to a room where I saw Bixen, I saw Gopalakrishnan, and Tata. She says, I could not even look at his face. The first time ever seeing him, about whom her husband used to speak like he's a god. Okay? Now, R&T told her, he said, I'm sorry what has happened to your husband. She says, sir, I've lost everything. I have nothing in this world. I have Varghese's mother, who is infirm. We are going back to Kerala. Immediately, R&T turned and said, from today, you don't go back to Kerala. You belong to the Taj. We will look after you till your death.
That's absolutely remarkable.
And
no, so in fact, really, it was...
I need to complete the story.
Yes.
And then told Reinal, the younger boy, what is that you want to do? He said, my father wanted me to be a chef. So he said, Mr. Tata said, he asked him, where do you want to go? He said, I want to go to Aurangabad. There's a famous institute there. So he passed out from Aurangabad. And after he passed out from Aurangabad, he wrote a letter to R&T saying that I'm short of 10 lakhs to go to Melbourne. R&T sent him a check of 10 lakhs. Today, Sonu Varghese says, my son is one of the top chefs in Melbourne. She has left Tata Welfare Trust and a son, and now she spends 6 months in Ireland and 6 months in Australia. That's how R&T took care of every employee who was affected.
People's lives. But it was in the last years, and in a sense, I think the Cyrus Mistry episode, of course, Cyrus Mistry also tragically lost his life in that car accident. But the Cyrus Mistry episode, did that mar the Ratan Tata legacy? And how did he take that personally? Because it really was, in a way, the fighting was so bitter. It became all about, did Ratan Tata falter in handing over, in a sense, though he was not part of the selection committee, in leaving it to Cyrus Mistry, and what went so badly wrong?
See, honestly speaking, it hurt Mr. Tata more than it hurt Mr. Mistry.
Why do you say that?
Because he told me, Thomas, I was torn in between two decisions, whether to intervene or not to intervene. He says, I debated over it for many months. There were two reasons. You know, R&T doesn't come out. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't articulate his views. He told me over a period of 2 to 3 months, you know what he told me? Something very interesting. He said, I made a mistake of not being in the selection committee. I should have been in the selection committee. He says, I was too naive and idealistic because I gave the selection committee an ultimatum. But when I turned 75, I'm going to work out whether they're going to select somebody or not. Okay. So the search cum selection committee recommended Ms. Cyrus Mistry. It's not that Cyrus Mistry is a bad man, no. He said he did not have the experience, but since the selection committee had made the recommendation, I went ahead and said yes. Then what happened? One important factor, he said, was that during the time of the selection committee, he had said the appointment is made conditional on the establishment of a legal framework separating Shapurji Palanji Group
Cyrus Mistry's company.
from chairman of Tata Sons, who happens to be Cyrus Mistry. He wrote it on the file that there has to be a legally tenable system. Cyrus Mistry was not able to do that. Mr. Tata wrote to Cyrus Mistry on 3 occasions. Now, why do I say this? It is not that Cyrus Mistry wanted to do something wrong, but the tradition is that a lot of the contracts, the big Tata companies went to Shapurji Palanji Group.
So it's a
For
conflict
instance,
of
I'll
interest.
give you an example. From 2009 to 2012, the total number of contracts were many, and the value was almost 3,000 crores.
From Tata to Shapurji.
From Tata
Palanji.
companies to Shapurji Palanji Group. And the 17 months after he became the deputy chairman, that is, holding hands with R&T, when he was appointed prior to his final appointment as chairman, it was about 1,361 crores. So the question arises when R&T has ensured that TCOC has to be signed by every Tata employee, a peon to somebody, a supervisor to a manager. Should not the chairman of Tata Sons actually follow it both in letter and spirit? That was the question. First question. Second was, it is true that during Cyrus Mistry's time, the profits took a beating. Now, in the morning session, they talked about 66% of Tata Trust owning Tata Sons, and the dividends which come to Tata Sons will go back to Tata Trust, which will feed the philanthropic activities. Now, I did an analysis from 1917 onwards. For the average of Mr. Ratan Tata's time, that is 21 odd years, the CAGR was 27+%, talking about Tata Sons' income. Much more than JRD's time. And when it came to Cyrus Mistry, it was minus 37%. So he asked, should I not intervene in order to ensure that funds are available for the Tata Trust to continue with his philanthropic activities. So what do I do is what he said.
In fact, a bitter battle which took its toll on, well, both sides, and Ratan Tata especially. But finally, as we end this session, we just had Republic Day, and there were many who felt that Ratan Tata should get the Bharat Ratna. And of course, he can get it at any point. It doesn't have to be Republic Day. But do you think, in that sense, he is unique as a person who deserves the Bharat Ratna and should get it sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should have. There are many reasons. The kind of achievements which Mr. Tata has been able to. I'll just give you a couple of statistics and stop over here. From 1991-92 to 2012, during Tata's, Mr. R&T's time, the top line of Tata's Sons grew by 1,742%. Now, you can imagine from $5.4 billion to $100 billion. Let me give you a comparison. You heard about Jack Welch. Jack Welch is considered to be, the businessman of the century. Fortune said it in 1999. Economists said he's the boss of the American business. It said it in 2020. If this is the categorization, please understand, Jack Welch from 1981 to 2000 recorded an achievement of 27 to 130. That's only 381%. So Mr. Tata pipped him by 1,361%. If Mr. Tata would have been as boisterous as half the politicians or the anchors of the TV, I think Vishnu is here, okay, I guess. If they are, and if Mr. Tata would have been actually propagating or talking about his achievements, the government or the world would have known. I'll give you one simple instance and stop over here. R&T took over Tata Motors in 1988. By 2016, why I say 2016 is because in 2008 you had the economic contraction. Normally it takes about 7 to 8 years for the economic contraction and the level prior to the economic contraction to be achieved. Can anybody tell me what would be the top line growth of Tata Motors? 10%, 20%, go wrong, doesn't matter. I will take you out for dinner. Can somebody tell me? Make a guess. Okay. Another guess. Another wild guess, please. Okay. Somebody?
5,000%.
Okay. 64 short of 20,000%.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Can I tell you something interesting? R&T also did not know that. He told me, Thomas, the figures are wrong. So I went back to the annual report and took it out. I said, sir, if I win, I said, you'll give me a blank check. He said, I'll give you a blank check. And I won. I took out the annual report and showed it to him. He says, you won. Here is the check. But he had not signed it. So that's R&T for you.
Thomas Mathew, thank you so much for being with us and his insights. And there's lots more in the book. So I would suggest read it, and we hope we get a second volume soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for being here. Thank you very much.